the skies over Europe were ablaze. It was 1943, and the Allies were fighting daily battles against the Luftwaffe, the feared German Air Force. The deafening sound of engines echoed like metallic thunder as formations of B-17 and B-24 bombers streaked across the sky toward the heart of the Reich. These giants flew together in tight squadrons, a fortress of steel and gunpowder in the air. But, like vultures on the battlefield, enemy fighters appeared from the horizon, agile, deadly, ready to tear the bombers apart one by one. It was into this scene of destruction that a completely different plane appeared, a fighter unlike anything ever seen before. At first glance, it seemed like an engineering error. Two engines roared like chained beasts, long parallel tails connected by an imposing wing, and in the middle, a small, forward cockpit where a single pilot held the controls. It was as if someone had disassembled two different planes and glued the pieces back together into an impossible shape. This was the Lockheed P-38 Lightning, nicknamed the Lightning Hunter, an aircraft that, on paper, seemed absurd, and even experienced pilots doubted it could handle the battlefield. But against all odds, this eccentric design not only flew, it redefined the skies of World War II. Today, you will learn the secret of the P-38. You will discover how an aerodynamic flaw that nearly killed dozens of pilots paradoxically became its most powerful weapon, and how the plane that seemed like a design flaw earned a title few would dare dispute: the invincible fighter of the war. In the late 1930s, the United States had not yet officially entered the war, but it was already preparing for the inevitable. The world watched the escalation of the conflict in Europe, and the U.S. Air Force launched an unprecedented challenge to create a fast, powerful fighter capable of traversing vast distances without refueling. The objective was clear: build an aircraft that could hunt enemy bombers at high altitudes, engage fighters in intense dogfights, and, at the same time, protect Allied aircraft on long-range missions. The major aircraft manufacturers of the time presented predictable designs. Traditional models, variations of single-seat fighters with single fuselages and reliable engines. But Lockheed decided to be bold. Leading the project was a young engineer just 28 years old, Clarence Kelly Johnson. Visionary, brilliant, and fearless, Johnson believed that the only way to meet the Air Force's demands was to break all the rules of traditional aviation. This was how the radical design of the P-38 Lightning was born, a twin fuselage fighter powered by two Allison V-1710 turbocharged engines capable of generating over 1,000 horsepower each. This combination allowed the P-38 to reach speeds exceeding 660 kilometers an hour, impressive figures for the time. Furthermore, the plane possessed something rare in fighters of the time: a gigantic range. It could fly over 3,500 kilometers without refueling, something that would change the course of the war in the Pacific, where each island was separated by hundreds of kilometers of ocean. The armament was also impressive. While most fighters had weapons spread across the wings, the P-38 concentrated everything in the nose: 4 50-caliber machine guns and a 20mm cannon. This gave the pilot deadly accuracy. Its bullets converged in a straight line, capable of destroying an enemy with just a few shots. But despite its innovation, the P-38 didn't win everyone over immediately. Its size was almost twice that of a conventional fighter, and its appearance was completely different from what veteran pilots were accustomed to seeing. Some even nicknamed it an alien plane. Others doubted its stability. If it looked so strange, how could it fly properly in combat? These doubts only increased when early tests revealed that the bold design also posed serious problems, including failures that would put pilots' lives at risk. Still, for Lockheed, There was no turning back. The P-38 was too bold a gamble to abandon. If it worked, it would be the fighter that would change warfare. What no one imagined was that Lockheed's bold design carried within it an invisible enemy, an aerodynamic phenomenon little understood at the time: compressibility. As the war progressed, aircraft were getting faster and faster. Speeds which had previously barely exceeded 500 kilometers per hour now approached dangerously close to the sound barrier, a mysterious limit that engineers were only just beginning to study. When a fighter dived at high speed, the airflow around the wing changed radically. Particles compressed, forming pressure pockets that affected the aircraft's lift and stability. The pilot felt as if the controls, previously sensitive and responsive, suddenly became hard as stone. In the P-38 Lightning, this problem manifested itself brutally. In fast dives, the control stick would lock up. The control surfaces would become unresponsive. The plane simply stopped responding. It was as if the pilot were merely a passenger inside a suicide missile. The Lightning dove faster and faster, vibrating violently. The dashboard seemed about to shatter, and the engines, roaring in unison, turned the cockpit into a steel prison that plummeted toward the ground. Many never returned to tell what happened. Reports describe sudden crashes during training and combat missions, where experienced aviators were swallowed by the very machine they were piloting. The P-38's reputation began to spread. It was not only deadly to its enemies, but also to the very men who dared to fly it. Some somberly called it the flying coffin, fearing that at any moment an unexpected dive would be the end. Faced with the growing list of fatal accidents, the Air Force pressured Lockheed. A solution had to be found. Wind tunnel tests, endless calculations, and technical meetings were conducted. Engineers studied every detail of the wing, the airflow, and the dive behavior. But the answer seemed elusive. Compressibility was like an invisible wall, impossible to cross. However, on the battlefield, an unexpected discovery began to change everything. Some pilots who had survived extreme dives noticed something curious. After crossing the most critical point, when there seemed to be no escape, the plane would stabilize itself. It was as if the Lightning had a life of its own. After being thrown into the abyss, it would right itself, regain control, and emerge from the dive in a burst of speed. Reports describe the sensation as like traveling through a tunnel of death, the stick hard as stone, the horizon disappearing, and suddenly, silence and control. The plane, which seemed doomed, was reborn in midair. This unique characteristic intrigued pilots and engineers. After all, no other fighter reacted this way. What for Spitfires, Mustangs, or Messerschmitts was the death sentence, for the P-38 became a chance for survival. Unintentionally, the Lightning had revealed a secret that would change its history. Its most feared flaw could also be its greatest advantage. Little by little, pilots began to learn to use this strange behavior as part of their combat strategy. Imagine the scene. A pursuing P-38 is cornered by a Messerschmitt Bf-109. The American pilot knows he can't win in horizontal maneuvers as the enemy plane is more agile in tight turns. So he decides to take a risk. He points the nose down and dives into a near-suicidal dive. The German fighter follows, believing it's about to finish off its opponent. But as they both dive, the Bf-109 begins to lose control. Its controls lock up, the plane shudders, and the pilot is forced to abandon the chase or risk his life. Meanwhile, the P-38 crosses the critical point of compressibility, enters the invisible tunnel, and is reborn. The controls return, the plane stabilizes, and the Lightning emerges from the dive faster than ever. Freed from the threat, it soared back into the sky, ready to counterattack. This maneuver, impossible for most aircraft of the time, became the hallmark of Lightning aces. What was once a death sentence now became a secret escape route, an aerodynamic territory where only the P-38 could survive. Veteran pilots began to exploit this advantage in combat. In the Pacific, against the agile Japanese Zero fighters, this technique became essential. The Zeros could dominate horizontal maneuvers, but were fragile at high speeds. In extreme dives, they were simply incapable of keeping up with the Lightning. What seemed like a design flaw became one of the most lethal weapons of World War II. And that was how the P-38 began to earn its reputation as invincible.
In Europe, the Germans had a name for it, der Gabelschwanzteufel, the twin-tailed devil. The P-38's unmistakable silhouette, with its two parallel fuselages joined by a central cockpit, was instantly recognizable in the sky. For Luftwaffe pilots, seeing it in the distance was a sign of imminent danger. In the Pacific, the nickname was different, but the message was the same. The Lightning was the fighter that never faded. The numbers confirm its reputation. It was the American fighter with the most victories in the Pacific theater. Its pilots were among the most lethal of World War II. Richard Bong, the greatest American ace, achieved 40 confirmed victories, all flying a Lightning. Thomas Maguire, another giant of the skies, scored 38 victories, becoming the second greatest American ace. But perhaps the most daring mission involving the P-38 occurred in April 1943. Using cryptographic intelligence that revealed the air route of Japanese Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of the Pearl Harbor attack, a squadron of P-38s was sent on a long-range operation. With far superior range than other fighters, only the Lightning could perform such an interception. The result was devastating. Yamamoto's plane was shot down, and his death represented a profound psychological and strategic blow to Japan. Every combat, every victory, reinforced the same message. What had seemed like a design flaw had become the Lightning's most powerful secret. It wasn't just an aircraft, it was a symbol of technological and psychological supremacy.
The P-38 didn't just earn its reputation for combat performance. It was also a technological milestone that foreshadowed the future of aviation. Tricycle landing gear. While most fighters of the time still used tail wheels, the Lightning innovated with front landing gear. This offered greater stability during takeoff and landing, reducing accidents on improvised runways shortened by the war. Nose-mounted armament. Unlike fighters like the Spitfire or Messerschmitt, whose weapons were spread across the wings, the P-38 combined 4 .50 caliber machine guns and a 20mm Hispano cannon directly in the nose. This meant that fire didn't need to converge at a fixed distance. Wherever the pilot aimed, the projectiles followed in a straight line.
ensuring deadly accuracy even at long ranges. Unparalleled range. With extra fuel tanks and efficient engines, the P-38 could fly hundreds of kilometers beyond the front line. This capability made it perfect for bomber escort, strategic reconnaissance, and long-range strike missions. While other fighters were limited to the immediate battlefield, the Lightning could go where no other could. And its versatility didn't stop there. It played multiple roles during the war. Bomber escort deep into occupied Europe, interceptor against enemy fighters and bombers, night fighter equipped with experimental radar, photographic reconnaissance, responsible for capturing aerial imagery crucial for campaign planning, light bomber, carrying bombs and rockets for ground attacks. Few aircraft in World War II had such a vast resume. The P-38 wasn't just a fighter, it was a multi-role combat platform capable of adapting to almost any mission.
By the time World War II ended, the P-38 Lightning had already etched its name in history. But its true legacy went beyond kills and victories. The phenomenon of compressibility, which nearly cost its reputation, ended up becoming a watershed moment. It forced engineers to confront a problem previously ignored: the behavior of air at transonic speeds. The studies conducted on the P-38 served as the basis for the development of aircraft capable of breaking the sound barrier. Thus, it can be said that the Lightning was one of the first steps towards the era of supersonic jets. Its aesthetics also left their mark. The iconic twin tail was not only functional, but also conveyed a unique identity, a design that remains unmistakable to this day. To see a P-38 flying at air shows is to witness the fusion of daring engineering and living history. More than a war machine, the P-38 became a lesson in resilience. From a risky aberration, it became an unbeatable legend. From a design flaw, it became a secret weapon. From a threat to its own pilots, it became the platform for America's greatest aviation aces. The Lightning showed that in the skies of war, even imperfections can become the key to victory. In the end, the P-38 was not just an aircraft. It was a symbol of human ingenuity in the face of the chaos of war, proof that with courage and adaptation, even mistakes can write pages of glory.
In the end, the lesson taught by the P-38 is clear. What seemed like a weakness became its greatest strength. While other planes crumbled before the limits of physics, the Lightning transcended the impossible. And so, to this day, its twin-tailed silhouette continues to echo like distant thunder, reminding the world that sometimes it's precisely your flaw that makes you immortal.